Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm here with video number 5 out of this watercolor lessons book. If you've been following along, this is video number 5. And how to paint and unwind in 20 tutorials. And I'm starting back in chapter 3 where video number 4 left off. And a couple of the things that we're gonna talk about in chapter 3 are layering and blotting and lifting, which I kind of showed a little bit of that in, I think, video 2 or 3. But also, let me go back to the table or the list of stuff. Blotting or lifting. Negative or white space, she just kind of defines it, and then mixing. But we're also, things that aren't listed here, we're going to be doing salt, which she talks about, dry brush, dropping on water, or dropping water, and then just some struggles, some water control. That's going to get us through video 3, or excuse me, chapter 3. And if you want to work along with me, one of the, a few things you're going to want to have on hand are definitely your watercolor paints, whatever you're using, and also something to like pick up for blotting. So she said you can use paper towels, which I do have some paper towels. I'm going to try these sponges. I'm also going to try paper towels, and I'm also going to try Q-tips also for some of that blotting. So if you want to get some of that ready. And then the other thing is some salt. I just have regular table salt, not sea salt, nothing like that. So you might want to have that ready. And those are the things we're going to do in this video, and we'll just kind of see how far we get. But I do have some paper ready to rock here. So we're going to start, and so video 4, I think we ended with the wet on dry. So this was a dry scene, and then I put this wet on here, which she says is similar to what we're going to talk about with layering right now. The difference between layering is you're going to use those values. So you're going to use a medium value to start, and then to layer, you're going to use either darker or lighter values. That's the difference, according to her book, between layering and then wet on dry. All right, so that's what we're going to do first. And I'm just going to pick a medium brush here. So I'm starting with a 9. And these sponges, I cut them into quarters so that I have like 4 other pieces. So that's actually why I have this little guy. And then we are going to, I think I'm gonna, for layering, I think I'm gonna start with, and I'm back to the original palette that I started with, not my ink refills. I'm just gonna use these today. I'm gonna spritz these and get these nice and wet. And I think I'm gonna start, as far as layering, I'm gonna start with just doing some leaves. So this is dry, and we're gonna start with some green, and I'm just gonna put this. And by the way, if you like this glass media mat, this can be purchased now from Stampin' Up, and I can put a link in my video if you're interested in buying this glass mat. And so she said a medium value. So I'm gonna put a little more water on here. And I think I'm just gonna kind of start with some kind of a leaf. That doesn't seem very medium. That seems pretty light. So let's go. And I think if I make this lighter, you can kind of keep layering on top of that. Now I'm gonna actually rinse this brush and I'm gonna pick up a darker green. So let's go with, this is like a peacock. Yeah, that's kind of a, well, let's go with that. Let's see what, I probably should put a little more water in there. Yeah, I like that. So as it's layering, it's becoming almost a different color between that green and then this peacock blue almost. And then, let me move my water. I've got some rinse water here, plus I have a smaller. So let's pick up just a little bit more of that. Yeah, so the layering, you can just see a hint of the green behind that lighter peacock and then the other one coming around there. Let me get this cleaned off. So I think as far as layering goes, it definitely depends on not just value, but also the color palette that you're using. So if we were to do, let me pick up some pink. So if we were to, I should probably, let me get a different brush too. Let me rinse this one out. This is no, I think I want a big petal. That's a 12. Let me try the 12. So we're gonna get this saturated. And then I'm gonna do just a couple petals. And then if we go a tad lighter, and I'm kind of, after I go one brush stroke, as I go over it, I'm kind of picking up paint a little bit as I go, which I didn't intend to do that, but that's actually, and that's one of the things that she does talk about in the rest of the chapter is like water control, how much water to, have on the brush versus, see, to me, this all looks like the same color. This all looks like the same value to me at this point. I took most of this off the brush, most of the color. I don't know, that kind of looks like the same value to me. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna actually let this dry, and I'm gonna pick 3 colors to kind of do some blotting and lifting, which actually, since we're on this one, let's try a Q-tip. And we're just gonna kind of see if we can lift with a Q-tip. It's working, but I don't think it's working as well. Let me try the sponge. If we were to, nope, that's just smearing paint all over the place. And it probably has dried already. So let's do blotting and lifting by just having a solid wash. Let's do that. And then we can rinse this out. So let's just grab, I'm gonna grab my flat brush. This is a number 1 flat. And I'm actually just gonna do a wash, because to lift your paint, it has to be wet. Once it's dry, according to her book, it's very hard to lift the paint. So we are going to, let's just pick a solid blue. And we're just gonna wash all over. And I'll go pretty dark on this. And that way when we lift, we can see what it's gonna look like. And the book does recommend paper towels. I just thought I would bring sponges in and Q-tips to give it a shot, but I'm gonna try to create some clouds. Ooh, that was a big cloud. This would take practice if you wanted a specific shape, but by just blotting, it does look like there are some clouds in there. That is kind of cute. So you would want to just, depending on what kind of effect you want, you'd want to go pretty small on your paper towel. This was about 1/4 of a sheet, kind of balled up. So that's the blotting and lifting, which did not work. It did not work well with these sponges, I will say that. It just kind of spread the paint all over the page. And then I think one of the things I'm gonna do is get a piece of color ready for the next, this is the salt technique. And I'm gonna pick, I wanna pick a darker color because I really want to see these effects rather than, let's go with a purple. I don't know if we would see the effects of some of these techniques with lighter colors. So let's do dark purple here for the salt. And I'm just gonna shake it on with my salt shaker. And what we're supposed to do is let that salt dry. Then once it's all dry, then you brush the salt off. So hopefully by the end of the video, I'll be able to do that and kind of show you what it looks like. All right, so we're gonna put salt on here. And it's just a random little pattern. And I'm gonna set this aside and we're gonna let that dry. Make sure I've got all the salt picked up here. And then we're gonna kind of go back to the book here for a second, just to kind of see what else I've missed as far as chapter 3 before we get into her watercolor, or the water issues, like the amount of water. So let's go back to this page here. So what I had to accomplish in this chapter, let me zoom, that's pretty good. I'll scoot this water back. So blotting, lifting, layering, which she is saying it's very similar to wet on dry. mixing in negative white space, which we did not do really as far as like a separate technique. But after the blotting and the lifting and the salt, so we'll come back to that. We'll hopefully let that dry. She does talk about a dry brush, which means very, very little water on your brush, which is kind of self-explanatory. So I could try that, and then dropping water on your background. So I'm actually going to spritz some water on this just to see what that looks like. And I might try some blotting. I think this is too dark, but I'm going to try to spritz some water on here and see what that looks like. She says that dropping water can sometimes be an oopsie, but she also says that it can be a way to create textures and things like that, which she also said that's kind of what you can do with blotting and lifting. It's a way to create a texture or to fix a mistake. So if I had accidentally dropped a color here that I didn't want, I could quickly lift it off, and that's also blotting. So that's a way to fix your mistake. So we'll do a wash. So I think this, yeah, this could be wet, yeah. So we're gonna create a wet background, and it might not work on this then. We're gonna try it. This might not do anything since that's dry. Basically she's saying it has to be a wet background. So we'll do some dry brush, and we'll also do some dropping water. And let's try it on this. Let's see if we drop water, if it will do anything to this, since this has been already dried. So this has been dried for quite a while, probably over a month. Probably more than a month. In fact, we'll try to lift. Yeah, it's picking some of it up, and it is having an effect, even though this has been dried for quite some time. Yeah, so it actually did work, even though this has been completely dried. And then if you do what she's recommending, so we're gonna try, I don't know what color, maybe, let's do yellow. And we'll see if we can do just the splashing. And we could try it with a different color. Let's do that. So we have our yellow. And let's actually splash, let's do some orange. Let me get a little bit bigger brush for that. This is my 9. Let's do some orange. That looks nice. And it's kind of similar to that other technique we did where we did wet. So this was in the previous video where we did wet, and then we just kind of dropped watercolor on that wet background. And that's kind of the same thing, only I already have a colored background rather than the plain white background. So that's kind of having that sort of expanding effect, which she kind of calls it like a fireworks pattern, which really probably if I put more on there, it would look more like a firework pattern. Or if I did it in a specific spot and more of it, you know, more concentrated. Like, let's do, yeah, so you could definitely do more concentrated rather than just the little. So we're gonna let that dry. And then I am gonna try a little bit of that dry brushing technique. And then what I'll do after that is I'll go back through some of her water control and her things that she says are issues with people that are just beginning to do watercolor for the first time. So take another piece of paper, and this is pretty dry. So I'm gonna pick up some green, and she basically says to pick up some paint, put a little bit of water on your brush, and then dry that off. And then you can just sort of very lightly dry brush with your color. And in the textbook, she kind of has like grass, like a grass image is what she actually has. So that's why I'm picking this grass image to do, which actually you have quite a bit more control with very little water. But if you go back to some of my earlier videos, she does talk about how you can get an inconsistent color if it's too dry, if the brush is too dry. But you definitely have a little bit more control with how much paint is going on and how much it spreads and bleeds, you know, into the next, where I can kind of pick that out and it's not going to be one solid green blending into the next. So you do have more control with the dry brush. So I kind of like that technique. All right, and we're still waiting for the salt thing to dry, but here's where it's at so far before it's completely dry. But look at how it's changed already. I'm so excited. I hope it's like, oh my gosh, I just see snowflakes and I kind of want to add blue to that, but we're gonna wait. we're gonna go back to the textbook for a second. And then the blotting of the clouds, these have dried kind of nicely too. I kind of like that. That's cute too. All right, so for chapter 3, and then the dropping on the water, it did work on a dry background. It just might not work as well as if you were to do it on a wet background. And I did 2 colors rather than, well, she kind of had 2 colors here, but I did 2 colors dropping on the wet background. But the water control she says is the biggest issue. And just trying to figure out how much water you need on a brush, and basically the technique that you're attempting. So she has an X and then a check mark. So too much water with the green bled into the pink, where this was just enough. So too much water, it blended and kind of muddied those 2 colors. And then she also talks about if you have water that's pooling, you get these like watercolor blooms, and that's too much water and it's kind of pooling into your already layered green. So she talks about that one. And then uneven amounts of water, some's gonna dry faster than others. So there's like this really distinct line. And she said that's because you've got uneven amounts where one layer has dried too quickly and the other one is kind of toppling over that one. So those are basically water control problems, and that's pages 49 to 51, which ends chapter 3. And then chapter 4 is that color theory and color mixing. And I think this is probably just going to take some time, but I'll do a few of these colors. And she kind of basically says to pick colors on the color wheel. So you've got the analogous, which are ones that sit next to each other. And then you've got, so there's 3 types: complementary, which are across from each other. Those are complementary colors. And then she talks about warm and cool. So sort of half the wheel, the other half the wheel. And then, yeah, and I guess the problems with it. So if you mix a warm and a cool, you can get a muddy grayish purple, cool red with a warm blue, and you get a vibrant purple. So depending on the color and the mixing, you'll get different variants. And this is color mixing with palettes. And I don't know if I'm going to make a chart like this or not. I might come back to doing that. I'm not sure. It'd be kind of nice to do it with my box of paints, because I am figuring out that I'm getting quite a few different colors out of that. So maybe I'll come back to that. This is in chapter 4, mixing complementary and contrasting colors. And these are her favorite mixing combos. So maybe we'll mix a few of these. Maybe we'll do, I don't know if I have anything close to cadmium yellow or a cadmium orange. I got some really bright oranges in there. I don't know if I have anything that subtle. I don't think I do. Let's pick, I have some pretty good pinks and purples. Maybe we could do, let's try mixing. Yeah, I don't know these reds and blues. So, meaning I don't know if this is like a warm red or if this is a cool red. I would say this is a warm red. And then I would say this is a cool red. So I'm gonna mix these two right here. This red and this blue. And we'll see if I get a purple. So let's try that out. So we're gonna mix. Put quite a bit of this down. And then I'm gonna get a different brush and pick up this blue. And let's see if we get a purple. We did. So probably I should take the time. Yeah, and I did get a purple. I should probably take the time then to do a value chart with this. It might be worth my while. Yeah. And that's not really getting muddied at all. And that would help me know that that is a cool red and this is a warm blue. And it would kind of help me to know what kind of a color palette I have here. So that might be something that you'd want to do too. But I'm going to probably do that a little bit later, either in another video or just down the road. Then chapter 5 gets us into basically picking some projects. So there's chapter 5, before you begin. So it has things to remember. Keep aware of steps. The more detailed, the more, the more time involved. It says, don't throw away your first attempts. Have fun, and, things aren't going to be perfect. And then it actually jumps right into chapter 6. So with this book, I think I showed it in the first video. Make sure this isn't wet. There are projects with like loose florals, but then there are also I think it's a different chapter, landscapes. This is loose florals. There's ones where there's like, you can trace it if you wanted to. Let me find that chapter again. Food. This might be something simple and fun to try first. Do a little piece of watermelon. Could do that. Animals. Maybe, this I think had the one where we could trace some of these. Let me go back and, yeah, it was chapter 9, animals. Oh no, there was tracing for chapter 8, food. 6, botanical. There were other things that you could trace. Well, let's just pick this one. So project 1, the watermelon. Let's start with that. And techniques were wet on wet, and I'm still waiting for my salt to dry. It still looks a little bit wet. Wet on dry, color bleeding and blending. A round brush, 6 and a 12. I think I have these out. There's my 12. Get these cleaned off. And a 6. Get those cleaned off. 5 paint colors, modify, clean jar, paper towel. So red, rose, green. So 2 reds, 2 greens, and then your black. So I do not have these particular named paints. So I do not have a Winsor red, and I do not have a permanent rose. But I think what I'm gonna do is pick something very similar. And then it says, step 1, with your size 12 brush, paint a wash of clean water over the full watermelon slice, except for the bottom skin. Then pick up a mix of Winsor red and permanent rose and tap it at the top of the watermelon, gradually moving it down to the base, and try to leave the base a bit lighter in color, even a bit white. All right, so let's attempt to do that. So we will grab, I just have a regular mechanical pencil here. And then should be able to erase these when we're all said and done. All right. So with the number 12, okay, clean water, and I'm gonna pick this sort of pinkish red and the one right next to it. I'm gonna pick those two and see what we can. And she's basically saying to mix them, like pick those up and mix them. So let's pick up some of that. I don't know, that might be too light, but we'll see. Let me pick up some of this red. This looks like a watermelon color. So mixing those. And I feel like my brush was a little too dry in the beginning. Oh, and you know what? I was supposed to wet this whole thing first, which I did not. I did not do that. So now I'm not, I wish I would have done that. Let me do this over again. Let me sketch this really, really quickly and do. Okay. Not the best sketch, but yeah, so I was supposed to wet this whole thing, except not like to the rind. So bad sketch, but I am trying to do it quickly for your benefit. And let's grab the 12 and we'll come back to this same color. Oh yeah, this is working a lot better. Much better with that already wet. And I'm kind of pushing the water. So the water is actually kind of pooling. I think I have too much water on here, but we're gonna let this go because I kind of like that effect. But definitely it helped to pre-wet that. So I'm gonna actually let that go. Now the next step 2, it says to take a small amount of sap green and put that on the base, and then that'll be the rind. And it wants the green to slowly bleed into that watermelon pink. So, and I'm just kind of randomly picking a green, not necessarily the green for a watermelon. Oh yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, so that green is supposed to pool. So this is step 2, which I kind of like that. And then this has to dry. So that might take a while for that to dry. And what I'll do is I'll come back when this is dry and also the salt, and we'll see what both of those look like. All right, guys, I am back with both of these dried, and I did brush the salt off of this, and I think it was maybe still wet and I didn't realize it, and it appears as if I kind of smeared the paint a little bit when I brushed that salt off. So beware. Make sure it is really, really dry. I was kind of in a hurry to see what it looked like. But one of the other things too, I just kind of sprinkled it from a salt shaker. And so it just kind of went all over. So you could really specify salt in certain spots if you don't use a salt shaker, you know, just put a little bit from a spoon, you know, where you want it. So kind of keep that in mind with the salt. This was straight, you know, with the salt shaker. So that was the salt effect. This watermelon is dry, and I've almost noticed one of those errors that she talked about with water control. So I don't know if you can see almost kind of how this pooled, not my out of the line part, but this kind of pooled, and also it kind of pooled and has like a stop line into the green. And I think I had way too much water there, and I knew that, but that is one of the things that she talked about with having too much water. So that this is project number 1 under food. And I'm going to go back to that page. And I thought I liked my colors until I set it next to her colors. And now I don't quite like them, but they're unique, right? Watermelons always look a little different. So this was step 1 and 2 of the watermelon. So project 1 of food, I think, chapter 8. And now I'm going to be looking at step 3. And it says, once fully dry, take your red and pink mixture and paint along the side of the watermelon and gradually lighten the black paint. I didn't put black paint on. Hold on. Did I miss a step in 1 or 2? No. So step 3, once fully dry, take your red and pink mixture and paint along the side of the watermelon. Gradually lighten the black paint as it blends into the green. Okay, so it's just, that's another part of step 3. Next, take your dark green and paint the skin of the watermelon. Lastly, using the tip of your size 6 brush, use black to create some watermelon seeds. And then see part 3, starting on 142 for tracing pages for this project, which I didn't trace. I just wanted to sketch them really quick as a practice. Part 3, I don't know if there was a watermelon. Go back to food. Oh, there is a watermelon. So you could. So if you wanted to, you could trace that watermelon. All right, well, let's do the step 3. So we'll go back to, let's get our water. And we need the, she wants the same pink mixture. I don't know what brush though. Probably size 6. I'm gonna say size 6. Yeah, let's say size 6. And we're supposed to go down the sides with like a darker mixture of that. So we're gonna pick those colors back up, the same 2 colors. And let me rinse this out. This is like a poppy color. If you can't tell on camera, this is like a poppy. So we're gonna mix those. And she says to like kind of pull it down the sides of the watermelon. I almost feel like this is ruining what I had. Well, let's see if we can lift some of that with my brush. There. Okay. Then she says to take some black and let it blend into the green. So we're going to take just a little bit of black. And then to take, she says to take a darker green. So we'll go see what greens we have here. This is a good dark green here. No, it's kind of a blue. We don't want that one. We'll go with this one. This is the darkest green I have that's not doesn't have a blue in it. So I don't know. I'm not really, I think it's too much. I think I have too much water. Let me just do, I think it needs to have more color at this end. Yeah, we'll leave that. We'll let that. And then she says to add some, with the same brush, with the number 6, she says to add some seeds. So we are going to attempt some seeds. Ooh, way too much water. This is where you want to blot. Pick that back up. Okay, that was a disaster. Let's put some more watermelon color back on there. See if we can fix that black blueberry. I should be rinsing in my bigger rinse water. Okay, let's try these seeds again. It's just too wet. She doesn't say to let it dry for those seeds. They're kind of, well, maybe it's my brush too. They're kind of, the first one I think was definitely too wet, but these other ones don't look too bad. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's too much water, and maybe that should have dried. I probably should have, I bet you she didn't say it in that step 3, but I think that should have been dry before I put the black on there. But it does not say to let that dry. All right, folks, I appreciate you guys watching. This is the end of video number 5, and I'll probably be back with a 6th video with some of the other things in the back of that book. Maybe I'll get some things pre-drawn, and then we'll see what kind of coloring we can do. Thanks again for watching.